So, innovation, small businesses, and hey, maybe even casinos will help lift Chicago's employment numbers, but we all know it's not just about how much you make, it's about what the government takes. Do you think some of the businesses, man, are going to just leave?
Of course, they're already doing it. They already done took flight. And they're being encouraged to take flight to other states that know about Chicago, like New Jersey, for instance. They want to go to New Jersey. The governor is trying to give incentives for the businesses in Chicago to come to New Jersey, and so is Wisconsin. Indiana is right at our border, so why wouldn't you dodge the tax by going to Indiana just like a guy that needs cheaper gas?
High tax rate in Chicago, high tax rate in Cook County. What does the mayor do to kind of quell that?
Well, again, our taxes are too high. I've pledged no new taxes, just to the record's clear, no new taxes, because we, particularly working people, have been taxed enough.
Now, what I don't want to do is raise property taxes. We're getting clobbered in the city of Chicago.
Crime, education, the taxes constantly going up. Those are my primary issues.
You know, one of the things we don't hear anything about from any of the candidates is one of the largest challenges in this city is the ex-offenders roaming our streets with no jobs, no housing, no education, and no way to get in for the rest of their lives. You cannot improve public safety without dealing with that population. You hear anybody talking about that?
We could put a police officer on every corner 24 hours a day, and it's not going to increase necessarily public safety. You know, it's just the community that has to come together. The community has to assume responsibility for the safety of the residents. Now, can they do that alone? Of course not. That's why you need your strong community-based organizations. You need your faith-based institution involved. You need small businesses, and you need the schools all coming together.
Crime, jobs, taxes, beware the hoodwink. We can't get away from the city's issues without at least touching on the parking meter deal.
I feel that the next mayor has to try to renegotiate that deal. You know, obviously we don't have the money right now to pay back the company and buy back the meters. We don't have $1.2 billion, and it'll be more than that because of the fact that it's increased in value. Already, that lease is worth a whole lot more today than what we got for it. And so we have to try to bring the company back to the table to renegotiate the terms of that lease. And that is why I have supported the lawsuit that's working its way through the courts. And then I've also said that I think that given that from our analysis, there has been a violation of the city's ethics ordinance, I think that we can void that contract. Now, of course, if we're able to do that, we do it for the purpose of bringing the company back to the table. Leases get renegotiated all the time. We need to renegotiate this 75-year lease that has taken the authority away from the city to make decisions for the next 75 years about how many meters we're going to have in the city.
Everybody else says, sue, sue, sue. That's a waste of time. When you spend $1.15 billion to cut a deal, you make sure you have an ironclad deal. It's a waste of time to litigate it. What I've suggested is, excuse me, that we go in and we renegotiate the deal, bringing something new to the table, negotiate from a position of strength, not a position of weakness. We take our city sticker, and a person can continue to purchase the city sticker for $75 if they want to. That's their option, and they just get to drive in the city of Chicago. But if you pay an additional $75, now you're paying $150 for your sticker. You can park in any one of the 36,000 metered spaces in the city of Chicago, excuse me, for a period of 2 hours. You pay extra, we get extra. They get their money up front. $50 goes to them, $25 goes to us. So now, instead of us only getting $1.15 billion, we end up with $5 billion.
Candidate Bill Doc Wall speaks of additional funding. A surplus should go toward bilingual education, AP courses, and literacy. So you want a mayor that pays close attention to the schools. What about charter, traditional public, private, magnet schools? What's your emphasis there?
My problem with the charter schools is that most of them, like the one in my neighborhood, you have to pay something like $300 a month. Most families can't afford that. So if we're living in a community, we want our school systems to be just the same as the ones that we have to pay for. You know, if we're paying taxes just as well as the other people are paying taxes, we want our children to be taught the same way.
As a teacher myself, you get to really see that the mayoral candidates don't know really very much about education, especially when they're talking about bilingual education and how they really want it. What we have in Illinois is this speedy transition to English, when all the experts know it takes at least 6 to 7 years.
Wow.
And number two, the disparity in educational funding, especially in Illinois, is really bad, and I would really like to see us move to a system, something like Hawaii, where all districts, regardless of what the house property tax rate is, all districts are getting the same educational funding.
Robert,
for public schools.
Robert, thank you so much for your call. Emily, I'm going to come to you first, and then I need an answer from a potential mayor here. He's talking about bilingual education. Politicians don't necessarily know what to do with that, or they don't have any answers pertaining to it. And he talks about funding. Should the feds and the state kick in more money when it comes to funding a child's education?
And here's what I've been saying over the past few weeks. We've been talking about fixing the educational system for over 40 years. You know, ever since I was a kid, you know, going to school. They gave away my age. But, you know, it's time for somebody to do something. You know, we've been talking, and Robert has a very valid point. You know, with the bilingual, I do think that it's only to our advantage to have our children speak more than one language, so it should be taught in the schools. But 40 years we've been talking about fixing this educational system. I have a problem with that.
Charter schools, magnet schools, vouchers, what's the answer here? Because if you're a New Trier person, you know, if you're in Wilmette, if you're in Kenilworth, if you're in Evanston, they're going to spend 18, 19, 20 grand a year on you. If you're in a Chicago school system, that much isn't going to be spent. What's the answer as mayor? What would you propose?
Well, number one, we need to have an educator over our schools. Right now, the business community runs our schools. Number two, we need an elected school board that is representative of the population. Number three, we need to engage communities in helping to cause the reform to take place. They keep trying to reform our neighborhoods from the top down. It's never going to work. It has to come from the ground up in order for us to have the kind of success that we can keep.
So everybody seems to agree that charter schools has been a positive innovation, that it's, you know, the results are in and they seem to be outperforming their neighborhood counterparts. But only 6% of CPS students, of the 400,000 kids in CPS, get access to a charter school. Absolutely. So if it's good enough for 6%, why isn't it good enough for the other 94%? What the next mayor should do, and Gary Chico has proposed a kind of a very small step in this process of extending choice to 50,000 kids. What the next mayor should do is change the way money flows and who gets to make spending decisions, to put money in the hands of parents to allow them to choose their child's education rather than being relegated to neighborhood schools that we know will fail them.
I am a great supporter of quality, universally available public education. And the reason is that if we move in the direction of the selective enrollment, the lottery systems, the vouchers and charter schools, if we move in that direction, we've essentially thrown in the towel on our ability to create middle class in this country. Public education is what created the middle class. It's what creates opportunity for everybody. And when you start tracking off and spinning off the best performing students into specialty schools that only they can get into, what you have is everybody else left behind.
So vouchers and lotteries shouldn't exist? I mean, are you saying that you're against school choice?
I'm against vouchers, absolutely. And in terms of charter schools, if somebody, you know, it's just like a private school. If somebody wants to start a private school, good on them. No problem. You know, if somebody wants to start a charter school, I don't even have a problem with that, so long as it is, you know, held to the same accountability standards as public education does. But to siphon off money out of public education to support these private efforts, all it does is limit our ability to provide for quality education for everybody else. And so the public schools wind up saddled, to use for lack of a better word, with everybody else, with whoever's left behind. And that's a sure step in the direction of destroying public education?